Webster defines a journey as traveling from one place to another. But in Journey to the Overland, you'll do a lot more than just travel. From the moment your character leaves his hometown, you'll begin to experience the encounters and adventures that could only take place in Journey to the Overland. Whether you're new to fantasy gaming or an old role-playing veteran, you'll feel right at home, yet uncomfortably new to the world of Overland. Far more than a board game, but not quite role-playing, Journey to the Overland combines the best elements of each. Set in a world where sorcery, magic, and might are the greatest powers, and surviving is the only law, Journey to the Overland gives you what the other games won't: a chance to tackle it all alone. With its unique encounter cards, various scenarios, and extensive use of non-playing characters, you have everything you need to enjoy hours of travels and adventures. But the only way to truly appreciate the commitment and dedication that went into this game is to grab your favorite figure, grab the dice, and start playing. Welcome to a way of gaming you will never leave, because once you begin it, there's no returning from. A Journey to the Overland. Hello everybody. So this is going to be the first in a series of sessions on playing Journey to the Overland. Now this is actually the second time I've recorded this. I did it once and I actually lost the video in between transferring it from my phone to my computer. So I'm going to try to bring you to where I was at, to where the other video picks up. So just in case you kind of notice my conversation kind of doesn't sync quite well, you'll understand why that is. This is the first of the videos that I'm putting together for this video, not the series, but this particular video. But anyway, what I went over in this first part was getting started with the game. And basically, Journey to the Overland is a game that you play on a map. It's a solo game. It has role-playing elements, and basically you're in a world, you're starting out, and you're just trying to see what's out there. So it's really an adventure from day one. So you get the book, you get encounter cards, which is basically how you encounter people in the world. You get weather cards, event cards, and there's other cards in here that you will use throughout the game that aren't all that important right now for setting up. To set up, you're going to get your character sheet. And this is a downloadable sheet. And most of the Kickstarter packs, I included them. If you bought it retail, you might not have got this sheet. But if you message me through Kickstarter or this YouTube or Facebook page, I can tell you where you can download it. So the first thing on the sheet is you're going to put your name in there. That's me. Your character name. I went with the name of Maverick because I like that name. Plus, this guy is just starting out, so there's really no reason for him to have some huge name like, Hugo the Great. Your starting location. If all humans start in Milesdale. If you want to play another race, you can play dwarfs, elves, or what are called native overlanders. Dwarfs start in Dwarftown, elves start in Elf Mountain, and native overlanders, I think they start at King's Castle. And all these locations are on a game map that comes with the rules and the cards in the box. I drew a sketch of my character. This is what this box is for. It's kind of old school. When people used to play D&D or role-playing games in general, travel or whatever, you would always kind of draw your character. Nowadays with the stuff online, I guess people don't do that as much. They just cut and paste artist picture. I still like this. In fact, there's a journal in here where you will journal how you start out your day or your weeks, because the game is played in a series of days that turn into weeks and months. So you would start with day number 1, or for here you might put days 1 through 3, week 1, month 1, year 1, right? Which is why I have here year 1, because this is what he looks like starting out. But you can also put little pictures in here, and I would encourage you to, of your things that happen. Like what I used to do when I first created the game as a teenager is I would draw a picture of the biggest event that week. So maybe I got attacked by wolves. I'd have a picture of me fighting the wolves, of course, if I lived. So the other thing you do, so once you get your name and you're going to roll for your starting characteristics. And basically you get 7, you're going to roll 7 numbers. The numbers are modified, and there's a chart in the book that will tell you, how to modify your starting rolls. So, for example, let's just show you this. On this chart here, if you roll a 0, 1 through 20, you would add 20 to that score. And then you will also get what is called a bonus pool. And what the bonus pool allows you to do, you can't see that probably there. What the bonus pool allows you to do is you get 10 points that you can allocate to any of your statistics, but you must give at least 2 to each statistic that you use it for, and no more than 5. So basically you can bump up 5 statistics by 2, you could bump up 2 statistics by 5, and you'll see me do that when I create my character. But basically you're going to get 7 rows. Now that doesn't mean you go to ability and roll and you write that in there. You want to roll your 7 numbers and then you want to allocate them, because it depends on what you expect to do or would like to do with your character as to where you're going to allocate these numbers. So whatever you do, don't just roll your first number and then put it in there, right? And then you find out later in the game, well, I can't be a barbarian because my ability score is too low. But you've got like a huge wisdom of 90. I mean, you're like some professor starting out. So you want to allocate them. So you're going to make all 7 rows, you modify all 7 rows, and then you allocate them. And so you can see here, this is what I wound up doing. And the second part of this, I'll explain it a little more. But I rolled a 28. I think you add 15 to that, so it got modified to a 43. I rolled an 83, which stayed at 83, but I added 5 to that to make it 88. Right? And so you see down the line what I did. And this is my bonus pool information, meaning I have to do greater than or equal to 2, and it has to be less than or equal to 5. It's my number for modifying it, right? But so what I do though is I rolled all 7 of these, and then I allocated them based on what I was planning on doing. So for example, if you go to the section on skills, because one of the things you can acquire in this game is skills. So say you would like, here's the ranger, right? Say you would like your character, you thinking about your character becoming a ranger. Well, it tells you in the ranger section, in order to be a ranger, you must have a presence score of 70% or higher. You might not be able to see that, but I'm reading it for you, right? And then once you become a ranger, you actually add 10 to your presence score. So my character, for example, could not be a ranger, right? Because my presence score is 63. And so you have to have a 70 or higher to begin, then you would add 10. It's not once you add the 10, it's 70 or higher. So unless I found a way to increase my presence, and there's different ways, sometimes you can increase it later on in the game. I couldn't be a ranger with this character, even though if I had the experience points. Because experience points are what you're going to use to buy your skills. And for so many experience points gives you so many to spend on skills. So say, for example, you wind up with 50,000 experience points, then you might have 5,000 you could buy a skill with. That doesn't mean you get to spend 50. The number you get, the more you get, the more you have to spend. So we'll get into that in later videos. But so I wanted to kind of show you all this, to show you where I was at, because the next part of this, where the original part before I lost it, it'll pick up from where I rolled. Because basically, I had rolled my first set of 7 numbers, and I didn't like them. They were pretty miserable, to be honest. And that's one of the things I point out, is that you do have to roll 7 numbers and allocate them, but you can re-roll those 7. You just have to re-roll all 7, right? And then allocate them. Now, how many times you decide to do that, I guess that's up to you and what you think is fair, and, still kind of credible. But I mean, the odds of you rolling 7 numbers and all of them being high is probably low. But I mean, I guess if you just kept doing it over and over again, you could break the system and do that. That's not the purpose for this. As a matter of fact, if you roll too high, you actually subtract. So I think if you roll a 90 or 91, you actually you subtract 5 from your roll. So there's kind of a, a catch-all in there, a fail-safe, so to speak, to make sure people aren't starting out with, kind of superheroes. But anyway, I'm gonna let the other video is gonna pick up here from where I've rolled my second set of 7 numbers, and I'm about to allocate them. Okay, I'm back. I'll show you what happened here. So I wrote up 7 numbers or characteristics, and literally it was miserable. I wrote like a 01 or 02 3 times, and I was using the green die as the 10 die. So what I'm going to do, and you can do this, is I'm going to throw all these out. So as long as you use the 7 rows, original rows that you get, that set of 7, you can re-roll as many times as you want. And I know that's not explicitly stated, but it says to roll up your 7 numbers. So I'm throwing all 7 of those out. You can't pick 3 and then re-roll the other 4. So I'm gonna roll 7 numbers again, and then I'll be back, because that was terrible. I can't play with a character. Okay, we're back. This time I did a lot better. So if you can see this, I rolled a 28. It got modified to 43, and that the modifiers that you added in the book. I rolled an 83. That didn't get modified. 53 went to 63. 73 went to 73, stayed at 73. I rolled a 01, which fortunately this time it was the only time I rolled a 1. That got modified to a 21. I rolled a 75, that stayed, and the 36 got modified to a 51. So these are actually some real good characters. Now, the other thing you're allowed to do when you create your character is called your bonus pool, and you get a bonus pool of 10 points. Now, when you allocate this, the number you allocate must be at least 2. So you're going to be, that should be equal to. The number must be either greater than or equal to 2 and less than or equal to 5. And I mean, that's just simple. These are just your simple signs. I forgot what they call them, but there's no math involved, right? So you can add up to 5 to a stat, but it must be at least 2. Okay. Now, you can allocate that any way you want, but you only got 10 points to do. So looking at this, I've got enough to be a barbarian because I have I have at least 3 stats that are higher than 70. So I could actually assign those to the ones I need for him to be a barbarian. I got enough to make him a fighter. So basically, the 21 is low, but I don't think I'm going to modify that. It's not going to make a difference between 21 and 26. So why would I spend 5 on that? The 51, I'm tempted to modify that. Maybe get it to 55, and that would leave me 6 points. The 43, again, I'm tempted to modify that. Because the 21 you can use like for your luck score. But after that, the rest of these are going to be fairly important. Between your presence, your ability, your agility, your muscle, your endurance. So I definitely want a high endurance, which is going to either be the 83 or the 75. So I could actually modify the 75 to 80. And I could modify the 83 to 88, which would be heck of a. But, and it's really not that many ways to increase your endurance. So if you can get your endurance up, you always should do that. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn the 75 into an 80 by giving it 5, and the 83 into an 88. So I will use the 75, which becomes an 80 for my ability score, which is what you use for combat and fighting. And the 88 is what I'm going to use for my endurance. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So I want you to take a look at what I did. So my character Maverick's going to have an ability of 80. A muscle of 73, agility of 51, presence of 63, luck of 43, wisdom of 21, endurance of 88. I decided to use the lower one on the wisdom, even though that's, all of these statistics are important. And like with that low wisdom, he probably would never get to be a wizard. He might even not even be able to study magic. But the luck is actually important too. There's a lot of times your luck might save your life. So I didn't want that to be rock bottom. Right here you can see where I've kind of listed his starting characteristics, as far as every character gets 50 gold, 100 silver, and four meals. Meals are divided as in meals for 1 or meals for 3. And really it's just an economy, meaning if you have a party of 3, you would just eat one of your meals for 3 if you bought these. And they have to be bought specifically. Whereas if you didn't have meals for 3, you'd have to eat 3 of your meals for 4. Now, if you had a party for 2, you could either take 2 from here or you could take 1 from there again. So it's an economy when you're trying to manage your eating. Fist fighting damage is based on what your muscle score is, and that's a chart in the book. So if you have a muscle score of 73, that gives you a fist fighting damage of 3. The highest is 4, so that's not bad. And everybody's going to start out as a level 1 character. He doesn't have a job, so he's not earning any salary or wages, and he hasn't killed anybody yet. Now, you do get basic clothing, right? And it doesn't really say what basic clothing is in the book, so I just gave him some tunic, breeches, and boots. And these aren't high boots, right? Because the high boots are special boots that you can wear that will protect you in swamps and other things. So you don't get any kind of specialized clothing, just basic stuff. So you're not, basically you don't start out naked. This isn't Kingdom Death. Okay. If anybody's ever heard of Kingdom Death, you'll know what I'm talking about. So we are going to have to buy him a hand weapon, but I wanted to point that out because I don't want you to think you have to spend your starting gold and silver on clothes per se. Now, I've played the game, so I know there's certain clothing like a heavy coat and high boots that are worth having if you're going to be traveling to start out. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to buy those things right now. So I'm going to go make some purchases. I think I'm going to get some more food. I'd like to at least have 10 days worth of food. I'm not going to buy any meals for 3 right now. I'm going to buy him a hand weapon and maybe some basic armor. I mean, you're not going to get much with this, but we'll see. And I'll be back when I get that. Okay, I want to show you what I've done here. I bought 6 more days of food, which came up to like 24 silver pieces, which left me at 76. I went through the table. I really didn't see nothing else I needed to get started, so I'd rather keep the silver, because one of the things I'm thinking is when I start traveling, I may try to hire some help to travel with me. A lot of the people that have the game have complained that, oh, I died in the first encounter. And I try to tell them, well, did you hire some help, right? Did you hire somebody to go with you? Because if you just walk out on your own, you know, into the barren lands, of course you're probably going to die. You're by yourself. I mean, back in these days, you know, even in historical settings, if you tended to travel by yourself, unless you were highly skilled, you were going to die. I mean, you were going to get robbed, you were going to get waylaid or whatever. So people traveled in groups or caravans. It's sort of like how the West was founded. You know, people went in wagon trains and caravans. You didn't just start trekking, you know, across, you know, the West, the old American West, you know, by yourself. So I want to save some silver to hire somebody to go with me once I decide to leave. I'm probably going to get a job my first week of play just to try to build up some more gold and silver. I just have to be careful because some of the early jobs, it sucks because you can actually lower your presence score or even some of your ability scores by working like as a serf or something like that. I mean, the work is so demeaning that, I mean, it basically, you know, has an effect on your presence. And your presence is kind of your... Okay, sorry about that. I had to download some of the videos. So basically, I think this gives us a starting character. Oh no, the other thing I was going to tell you is I purchased a broadsword. And one of the things is I recommend that you purchase the best weapon you can afford. And every weapon is going to have, let me see if I can get this a little bit clearer for you. But every weapon is going to have two principal characteristics. The modifier, this is what you add to your ability score when you roll to hit or to use the weapon in general. And then a damage, which is how much is subtracted from your opponent's endurance. The weight, some weapons won't have a weight. Most of them, if you buy them, they will. And this is to keep track of. Generally, I think every character has a 50-pound weight limit. You know, I don't really pay much attention to that, other than if you know something's going to put you over your weight, you know, then you need to buy a wagon or a cart. But what I was saying was the broadsword is 50 gold pieces, so that cost me all my gold, but it's probably the best overall weapon in the game. It gives you a plus 10 modifier. So, for example, I'll have 90% when I'm attacking or using my broadsword. It does minus 15 damage. The average person you encounter might have like 50 endurance. So, depending on whether they're wearing armor or a shield, you could basically take them out of the game, knock them unconscious with 3 hits with a broadsword. So that's very, very powerful. I know a lot of people will tend to want to buy, you know, maybe a short sword, where I think this goes down to like 10 or 9. And then they want to buy some armor or something. I mean, if your endurance isn't that high, then I do think some kind of armor is good. I don't have any armor. And I know that can be scary, but, you know, what's my endurance? An 88 endurance. You know, I should be able to hold up pretty good. And you got to remember, in combat, you can do offense or defense. And the nice thing about the broadsword is it's an offensive and defensive weapon. And the difference is, for defense, let's just say somebody attacks you and he has an 80%. And you decide to make a defensive action instead of attacking him back. You can roll your defense. So you would roll 2 dice, and any defensive modifiers get added to it, which usually the only ones are a shield. But certain weapons like the broadsword, you can add that to it. So that would give you a plus 10. So say you roll a 40, you get a plus 10, that's a 50. Say he rolls, say he has an 80% attack. You subtract 50 from his 80, so now he only has a 30% chance of hitting you. And that's how that works. Your defensive roll gets subtracted from his attack. So that's very powerful in the sense that you really reduce the chance of the person harming you. So the broadsword can be used for both. But I think that's my basic character sheet. I'm pretty happy with it. I don't think I've forgotten anything. So the next video, we're going to start out with our first day in Overland. Like I said, I may, if I decide to get a job, I may kind of do that and then let you know how that worked out later on. I don't think you need me to roll every day to see how much I earned or whether I earned anything. But then again, I might. It might be kind of interesting to show you that. So this is kind of your basic getting started with Journey to the Overland. Be sure to let me know if you have any questions, and stay tuned for the adventures of Maverick.